Hello guys, what's up, what's good? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Dammy. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back to watch my videos. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Dammy and I make lifestyle, faith and beauty content here on YouTube. And I hope you find some content that is useful for you, and most importantly, I hope it blesses you. So today's video would fall under the category of lifestyle, as we'll be talking about finance. I've spoken about finance on my channel before, but not in the arena of property. So for me, property is one of those things I've always been interested in. I've been into learning and looking into property for the longest time, and by the grace of God, special grace and help of God, he helped me to get on the property ladder just over a year ago, where I got my first property, and by the grace of God, we keep moving up from there. So I just wanted to talk about some of the things I've learned on this journey so far, and some of the things that I would share tips wise, what I wish I knew, and all of that good stuff. But I thought we'll start with why property, because as I always say, if there's no why to your doings, if there's no why to your foundation, it can be easily shook by another person's opinion and whatnot. So I'll be sharing you my why for property. Obviously with everything, as with everything, comes with its pros and its cons, and I truly believe in property and its pros, which is what I'll be sharing with you. I don't think there's any need to dwell on the cons, but we can talk about that later some other time, just so that we can be real and we know what we're going into. I must say, obviously I don't give property advice. I am still a baby in this journey, still learning so much, so please do your research. I'm speaking from a UK perspective, from a British buyer perspective, and even more so Scotland, because between Scotland and England and Wales and Northern Ireland, things vary quite a lot. So bear that in mind. And again, like I said, this is my journey and this is what I've experienced so far and what I've been able to deduct from the journey so far. So like with all investments, they all pose a risk. Wonderful financial advisors would always tell you to always have some sort of emergency fund, or having to invest in yourself in some way or the other before putting money and throwing yourself into investments, just because it can go left or right. So every investment comes with a certain degree of risk. Property, however, falls on the lower spectrum of that list. High risk investment can also mean high risk loss or high risk gain, whereas low risk investment, obviously low risk loss and low risk gain. Property is on the spectrum of being low risk. However, despite it being low risk, it is still a very fruitful investment. Property is not one to fluctuate too much, and if it does, it kind of has a pattern. You can kind of go back and see patterns in property, in the property cycle. There's something called the 18-year property cycle, which is a whole lot of explaining, but I'm sure a lot more people here on YouTube can do better explain the property cycle. It's difficult to tell which part of the cycle a property lands on, but it generally goes through an 18-year cycle, and you find that through those cycles, over the years, over the centuries, property kind of has been stable and kind of has shown consistent result of yielding positively. There are times where, yes, property goes down, it would fluctuate in and out, but the trajectory is always upward. It is low risk. You kind of know what you're going into, you know what you're putting your money into. Obviously, there are people that have put the money into property and they have gone bust, it's gone left. But the majority of times, if you do your calculations properly, if you went into it with, sound advice from, the team around you, you should hopefully get into a fruitful venture. Property has guaranteed capital growth. Again, like I said, not every property. There are some there are exceptions to the rule. But property, capital growth, property kind of guarantees that it would grow over time. Again, going back to the property cycle, you would see that there are times where it goes in and out, but usually that in and out is kind of going in and out upwards. It's proven to sustain its value over a long period of time. So thirdly, why property? Because of cash flow. Now, Cash flow is dependent on various factors because there are different ways you buy property, there are different ways different people handle their property. Obviously, if you're going to live in your property, that's not really giving you much of cash flow. So we're talking about cash flow when investing in property. But also, if you are living in your property and you have someone living with you, like a flatmate, then that's also, you can consider that a means of cash flow. But most of the time, cash flow is seen when it is, being rented out. There's a cash flow guarantee with property because people are always going to rent. Renting is always going to be a thing. Now, how much you would get depends on a lot of factors, depends on your rental yield and all of that. But it's a means to have some sort of cash flow passively. I always use passively with investing in quote unquote because there is some active part required. You're going to need to save a lot of money to put down a deposit. You're going to maybe need to have a management company and all of that. But usually once you've gone through all of those phases of investing the initial cost and fund, then it can easily then be a consistent cash flow that is passive. You won't get there in a day, but that can be the end goal. Number 4, as to why to invest in property, is the ability to leverage funds. Property is unique in the sense that you're kind of playing a game of Monopoly where you're putting down a small amount to be worth something much, much more. So we're going to use £100,000, for example. The house is worth £100,000 and you're putting down 10%, which will be £10,000. Once you put down that 10% and the house is in your name, you're technically now worth 100,000. So that trade is kind of mathematically amusing because you didn't have to put down 100,000 pounds to have access to 100,000 pounds worth of money. You only had to put down 10,000 pounds, and if possible, in this day and age, probably 5,000 pounds. And now there's 100% mortgages, which is something else we can talk about. Don't know if I recommend that, but that's another means where some people don't have to put down anything at all to be worth the property of the house. Now, obviously, some people would say that a con of property is that the money is it's not liquid money and the money is kind of stuck in the house. But there are different ways to pull money out of a house. Obviously, by selling it to get the money back, you can leverage. And that's what I meant by ability to leverage funds, where you pull out equity. So you can use your house as collateral for things. If you were to open a business, again, because the house is worth a certain amount, you are technically worth that amount, right? And if push comes to shove, where you really need a large amount of money, you can go negotiate with the bank and pull out a certain fraction of that money, and they will tell you the consequences of that. So ability to leverage funds is always a really good option to have, just in case, like I said, you were going into a business venture, or you wanted to buy another property, or you wanted to buy a car, or you wanted to do whatever you want to do, invest in children's education. Having properties allow you to leverage from that. And the thing about it is the house is still yours. Another pro of property is that you can have an instant equity. Now, equity, how do I explain equity? Maybe I'll pop an official definition, but basically value, right? Let's call it that. You can have instant profit. Value profit. Yeah, instant profit with property if you buy correctly, and by the grace of God, if you have favor with the buy-in. So what that means is, if a property market value is worth, again, £100,000, but for some reason you've been able to get it for £80,000 or £95,000 or £90,000 or possibly £60,000, who knows, right? That might be due to various reasons. Many reasons fall into that, such as maybe a seller that's wanting to sell quickly, something that is just below value that you need to renovate. Many reasons go into properties being below market value. So if you're able to secure a property below market value, whether you negotiated well with the seller, then you're kind of going into that property already having a certain equity, having a certain profit, because you didn't pay the actual worth of that house, you paid less, but the house is still worth what it's worth, right? So that means whatever difference between what you paid and what the house is worth is technically already free money for you. Again, going back to pulling out money, if you chose to pull out that difference, you're already sure that the house is more than what you paid for, and you have that instant profit. You already know that you've got a good leg ahead. And again, like I said, the property will probably increase over the years, and having that leverage of instant equity is always important. Hence why it's important to buy wisely, and always negotiate when buying. It's very key for your own benefit, because everybody's trying to make profit, and you want to be sure that you're part of the people that make profit from that. Yeah. And finally, what I would say as well is that property helps you to diversify your investment portfolio. Generally, you should aim to diversify your investment portfolio anyway, because not one thing is sure. You want to make sure that you spread your tentacles, you enlarge the place of your tent. Having property there helps to diversify your portfolio, and give you a different way to make money as well. Property, again, is one of those investments that is known to be able to protect against economic turmoil, such as inflation. Inflation these days is going through the roof. But things like property, just because everything's going up, naturally rent and stuff is also going to go up. And that should also, again, spike the prices of property as they go. The price of property many years ago, maybe our parents or our grandparents, whatever they paid for property, they could probably have paid £30,000 for the whole house. Now that's barely a deposit for a family home. So over time, it's only going to become more expensive. But if you lock in a property now, then your property, again, is going to increase over time, which means that as money is becoming worth less, as inflation is increasing, then your property is kind of is giving you a bit of shield economically as well, because it's increasing value, and it's also helping you to be able to deal with inflation better, knowing that your money isn't stagnant and isn't reducing due to inflation, but rather it's increasing. Also, one thing I'll add, a bonus point, is that you can go into joint ventures. So if obviously, like I said, property involves a lot of money. So usually having a joint venture with somebody else, someone that you trust, it's another thing. Someone that you trust usually helps to reduce that initial percentage and cash that you have to put in down in the beginning, and then you guys can split the profit and all of that. So you don't have to carry everything on your head alone if you can't do that at the present moment. And most of what I'm talking about would probably be relating to property investment rather than just owning a home. On the side of having your own home, it's just more obviously people have pros and cons to renting. I've seen these videos where people say don't buy property, please rent, or don't rent, buy property. Again, it really depends on your goals in life, where you want to be, what you want to do with life, and what you want to do with money. But owning a home, if you were just to own your family home and look into purchasing property, it just gives you a certain level of peace of mind, right? Where you know that nobody is coming for you. There's no risk of your rent increasing at different intervals that you can't control. You can decorate, break things, move things as much as you want. It becomes your home, that you can obviously invest time, invest money, invest effort in to making it your house. When it comes to renting, there are things that you can't do, you're restricted. So a place that you can make a home, you can build memories in, and you can be in for a long period of time. Again, like I said, without you having to worry that someone is going to come and say, okay, I'm selling the house today, or okay, I'm giving it to another person to rent, or I just don't want to rent anymore. So having that level of peace of mind, some people really enjoy that, and some people just want to have the freedom of moving around the place with renting and all of that. Again, like I said, I hope this video helps to see the good sides of property, and use it to help to inform your decision. Hopefully we'll talk about a lot more things regarding property and how to go about it, and again, some of the things I've learned. If there's any questions, anything that you feel like will be good to talk about, for me to talk about, please let me know, and I'll try my best to shoot that video. All of these are subject to research. Please do your research in your area. Each city is different, each country is different, but generally the rules of property spread across the globe, spread across the universe. Property works in most places if you get it right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.